Welcome to the Level Up English podcast, the best place to come to practice the English language, learn about the British accent and culture, with me, your host, Michael Lavers. Hello, English learners, and welcome back to the Level Up English podcast. Great to have you here again. I hope you're ready for an exciting episode today. So I think it was episode 42 when I first spoke to Lindsay Williams on the podcast. And even before that episode, Lindsay was someone I was following online for quite a long time because she does amazing language learning posts and content, on YouTube and other places online. She also has a podcast to help language teachers as well, so obviously useful for me. And of course, this is her second time on the podcast now. And I really enjoyed it because, of course, way back in episode 42, I was somewhat a beginner at podcasting and I was a bit more nervous, more awkward. I remember I was also in Thailand at the time as well, and I was panicking that my microphone had broken. So I think by now I was much more comfortable and we had a really good conversation about a variety of different topics. And it was great to chat with Lindsay once again. And if you want to know more about Lindsay, her website is Lindsay Does Languages.com. In the episode, Lindsay talks a little bit about a quiz that she has created on her website. And this quiz tells you your language learning style. And it's quite a fun quiz. It's quite short and simple. And you go through it and answer these questions about your language learning preferences. And at the end of the quiz, it will give you a character and it will tell you a little bit about what kind of learner you are and how you should progress and the next steps for you based on your learning style. I just retook the quiz again today because I did take it before, as I will mention, but I forgot my result. I just retook the quiz and I got Pingu, the character Pingu, which is a mixture of kind of being independent and sociable, a mixture of the two. And it gave me lots of really good tips on my next steps as this character, this kind of language learning style. I highly recommend you check out the quiz. We're going to get back to that more in the main episode as well. But yeah, really we just have a catch up. We begin by having a catch up, talking about what Lindsay's been up to recently. We then slide into some topics about her own language study routine and how that might have changed since the last time we spoke. And then we kind of talk more about habits. So the topic of the main podcast today is habits, where we talk about good and bad habits we have. We talk about some good habits that we have recently put into our lives and, maybe some habits that we want to implement, we want to add in the future, and much more as well. It's a very information-packed episode today. And then finally, in the private episode coming out on Friday this week, we talk about some expressions, some idioms related to habits. And I kind of quiz Lindsay a little bit and she gives a really good definition for each one. So yeah, lots to talk about today and I hope you enjoy it. You can become a member and access these private episodes at levelupenglish.school. Click the link in the podcast description if that's easier. But without any further ado, let's get into the episode. Hello, everyone. Hello, English learners. Welcome back to the Level Up English podcast. My name is Michael, and I am delighted to be joined by Lindsay Williams for the second time on the podcast from Lindsay Does Languages. So welcome back to the podcast.
Hey, hello. Excited to be here. Thanks for having me back.
Of course. I was really happy to see you wanted to. So yeah, thank you for joining me. What have you been up to recently? I think I just said to you before we started, it's been about 2 years, over 2 years since we last spoke. So what have you been up to in that time?
Oh, well, we all know what's been going on the past 2 years since. Let me have a think. But yeah, I've been lately quite busy working on something that I think we're going to talk a little bit about today. Thinking a lot about language learning and like how we learn languages. And I've been sort of in the background, I guess, in that time. One big thing I've been doing is working on my my master's in applied linguistics. So that's given me lots of opportunities to really dig into second language acquisition and all sorts of really interesting topics all around that as well.
That's amazing. Yeah, you mentioned that to me before. If it's not too personal, what was
Mm.
your motivation to start that master's? Because that's obviously a huge thing to get into now.
Yeah, I mean, in 2017, 2018, I spent some time kind of traveling, and we made a really cool documentary series called Language Stories, where we were meeting lots of amazing people and hearing stories about languages, and just like it made me think. I remember it was sort of in Vietnam, and I was thinking, this is fun. I like this. I like discovering more and kind of, going beyond what I already know about language. And so I was looking into it then, like, well, how can I learn more? Like, what is the name of the subject that is learning about how we learn languages? And yeah, I kind of came across the degree, the applied linguistics thing. It's distance learning, which is completely my jam. I'm
Yeah.
totally into that. My undergraduate degree was the same structure, and so that was a big win. That was something I really wanted, and it took me a couple of years to be like, do I? Is it worth it? Should I? Then obviously 2020 rolled around, and I thought, well, I'll just apply. Who knows how long we're going to be trapped at home? It'll give me something to do.
Yeah.
And yeah, here we are, almost on the cusp of final big dissertation now.
That's amazing. Wow. Is it going okay? You handling the stress okay?
It's been fun. It's been fun. It's been interesting, but it's also been, yeah, lots of balancing and okay, now we're coming up to an essay, lots and lots of busyness, and now we've finished. I'm okay to take a little week off now and breathe.
Nice.
It's very
Amazing.
constant. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
but it's been good.
Okay. So let me know if I'm right. It sounds like you're learning a bit about the, I don't know, the inner workings of the mind and how we learn a second language and that kind of theory behind it. Is that what you're learning?
Yeah, some of it. There's been a real mixed kind of topics. So a bit of sociolinguistics, which is all about, well, the thing I did was all about like accents and dialects and how we distinguish between a language, a dialect, and accent.
Mm.
There's been some stuff in there about like directly about second language acquisition, about how we learn. And the one I'm doing at the minute is about it's called psycholinguistics, which at first I was like, that sounds terrifying. Do I pick that module? That one sounds a bit intense. But actually it is kind of, the angle I've gone in terms of my assignment stuff. It is about like how we learn, and I'm really looking into like vocabulary and word learning acquisition. So it's been good fun to then apply all of that to my work as well.
That's so cool. That's so cool. Where is the best? I mean, we can go back to this at the end, of course, but where is the best place for us to see that? The work that you're doing as a result of all you're learning now. Like, how is that coming through in your work? Where is that going, basically?
I actually just yesterday, at the time of recording, just did a workshop about vocabulary, about how to learn vocabulary once and for all, I called it. And I really drew a lot from the assignment I'm working on right now. So there's, yeah, bits of it have like trickled in, things like that. There's a few blog posts that I've written over the past couple of years where, it's been quite connected to the studies and the work I've been doing on it. And yeah, I guess the personality quiz as well has been kind of drawn from that, and really thinking about how we as individuals are learning languages differently. And yeah, so it's been fun because it's kind of given me a broader understanding and confidence in that more kind of technical side of it,
Mm.
rather than feeling, maybe like for a couple of years like, oh, is everything just anecdotal? Am I just saying this worked for me, try this? Like, it feels much more solid for me now, which is good.
That sounds something that I'd want to learn about more too, because it is
Mm,
something that I found along my podcasting journey and everything that at the beginning I might have been saying more like, this is the way to learn a language. And the more I've learned, the more I've, progressed, I kind of am saying, well, this is how I do it, but everyone's different. Some people like this, some people like this. And I realize there's just so many different ways to do it, and there's no one way to do it, which is,
Yeah.
I mean, it means there's kind of endless content for content creators like me, but it's also a bit of a headache for people trying to find the best way, I find.
Yeah, it's difficult. And a big part of, I think, how that has kind of been reflected in what I've done in work over the past couple of years has been that shift from try this, do this. This is the way to learn vocabulary, to first of all, number one, recognize that you are you, and that is the most important thing to understand when you're learning a language, and then secondly, now let's look at a different way of a few ways that we could learn vocabulary. And then let's think, okay, well, where am I at with the language right now? What do I want to do with the language? What is my personality? What is my kind of language learning style here? And how does that all fit together with what I've been presented with? Because the risk is that we see everything online and we think, oh, I need to do all of these things. I need to start doing this method, that system. And no. First of all, we need to understand ourselves so that we can actually make sense of everything that is out there, because it's all so valuable, but it's only valuable if we know how to apply it and how to use it for ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, on that topic, I think one realization that I came to is that I just don't really enjoy learning languages like watching movies or TV series. I know many people try to encourage people to learn that way, but I found whenever I sit down, I watch like a TV series in whatever language, I'm not that engaged. I don't find it that good for me. So that's one thing that I found. But is there anything for you, like maybe something that most people will do but doesn't work for you, like a learning technique?
Oh, yeah, good question. For me, it's listening only. Like, I love podcasts, like brilliant as a thing, as a concept. But if I'm listening to like a podcast or like an audio lesson and I'm not connecting that to any visual, then I'm not like learning. And this is a terrible thing to say on a podcast for learners, but that's the whole point, right? For me, I need to think of a way to activate my brain and my learning process to actually make use and make sense of what I'm hearing. And there's loads of ways that you can do that, but it's just about knowing what it is for you. So, I used to just expect that, I've got all these long drives and commutes, let me throw on some audio lessons. I'll be fluent by the time I get there. I'll be fluent by the end of the week. I'll be a pro in Arabic, and just give me a couple of weeks with these 30-minute drives each way, right? Of course it didn't happen, because I didn't realize at the time, but for me, I need that something extra. I need to give something extra. I can listen on its own, but then I need to revisit and go back to it. And that's not going to be the same for everyone. For some people, they're lucky enough that they can listen and they can learn just from that, and that's amazing. But yeah, I started talking, then I realized this is a terrible thing to say on a podcast.
No, not at all. I mean, I'll be the first to admit too that there are many people, they might be trying to listen today for the first time, and maybe it's not for them. That that's totally fine, because we all learn in different ways. I mean, I make podcasts now because it's my favorite way to learn a language. I'm always listening to Japanese podcasts or Chinese podcasts, so I feel like I want to make the content that I enjoy learning. But yeah, it's not for everyone, of course. But I guess this ties into your quiz now, doesn't it? The finding out what kind of a language learner you are. So could you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. So, like I say, I was realizing that this was really the first step to actually being able to make sense of anything to do with how to learn a language. And I thought, okay, well, how can I kind of create something that really clearly outlines this for people? And a quiz seemed like the best way, because it's just a little bit of fun. You get that answer and it's quite satisfying then. And I took a bit of inspiration from those personality quizzes that you get out there, like Myers-Briggs and all of those things. And I was really thinking, well, what are the different types of language learner? How do they cross-section? How do they, contradict each other? So there's a few elements to it. For example, you might be a one language devotee or a language dabbler, right? You might be a minimalist when it comes to resources, or a magpie. You might be a solo studier or a community craver. And you might be a raring to go getter or a dab hand. So a completely newbie, or you've been doing this a while, you're pretty experienced. And, those different combinations create these ever so slightly different learners, right? Like if you are, a solo studier and you much prefer like listening to podcasts on your own, reading on your own, and every now and then you'll have a lesson, totally fine. There's nothing wrong about that way of learning. But if you are a community craver and you actually really need, those lessons and exchanges and meetups and all of that kind of human connection and contact with your learning, but you're trying to learn in a kind of solo studier manner where you're trying to force yourself to sit with a textbook each day rather than go to the meetup, then it isn't going to work for you because you actually are craving something else. So it was just trying to give people that visual to help say, hey, this is who from the questions that you've answered in the quiz, I think this is probably your language learning profile. This is your language personality. And hopefully it helps to then give people a bit of a clearer path as to what they can be doing and how they can be using certain resources and how they can be learning a language, essentially.
Yeah, I think it's such a good idea. And I think it has the potential of saving a lot of time. So I think many language learners spend so much time trying different techniques and realizing it's not for them and tweaking things for sometimes years, maybe. And if you just understand yourself, your personality, your way of learning a bit more, I guess you can shortcut that and just get into what helps you personally, right?
Exactly. That's exactly it. Like there's so much experimentation in language learning as it is. So we may as well eliminate the bits that we don't need so that we can still make progress alongside that, by understanding a bit about who we are and therefore how we are best going to individually learn languages.
Yeah. And the quiz is at lindsaydoeslanguages.com/quiz, right?
That's it. Yeah. Nice and simple. Yep.
Yeah, perfect. I mean, as I said to you before we recorded, I did it last week, I think. I'm embarrassed because I totally forgot my results, so sorry about that.
That's okay.
But yeah, it's a good quiz, and I think at the end it explains a bit more about your type and what that means, right?
Yeah, and kind of explains, on each of those, there are 16 possible options, right, with the 4 elements and the different combinations. So yeah, on each of those results pages, you've got 3 ideas of like, well, what do I do with this information? How do I go forward? So there's 3 things to very clearly help you out there on that front as well.
Nice. I need to try it again and review for myself.
See if it feels familiar, if you get the same result.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah, I think it's maybe for people like you and I, it's always quite fun to like try different methods and tweak it. But I know there are a lot of people out there who they don't really enjoy that. They just want to learn the efficient way. They're not bothered about trying all these different methods because they just want to learn the language.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Nice. Is there anything else to add on that I haven't asked yet?
I don't think so. All feels
okay. Yeah,
all feels good.
Nice. Well, yeah, I'm excited to try again, and I'll put a link in the show notes for people who can just click on it and try very easily. Well, I wanted to ask you what your study routine looks like now, or if you even have one. I know some people might not even say they have one, but what does your language learning routine look like now, and what languages are you dabbling in right now? I know it changes for you sometimes.
Yeah, that's a good question. And like we talked about the masters, and I think for a lot of the past 2 years, that's had to take priority essentially. So yeah, right now I don't have a specific language routine. Like the time that would have previously been my language time is now my master's time. So in the morning when I've got that bit of space, that's when I tend to do that. But I do try and check in each day with at least, a couple of apps. Primarily right now I'm learning Russian. But yeah, I try to do a couple of little sessions on apps throughout the day. I will, sounds like I don't like podcasts, but I will listen to podcasts if I'm going for a walk or something. Music is always really big for me. Like, again, with languages that I've previously studied, especially, I want to just stay in touch, so to speak, with those languages. And so yeah, music is good for that. I love watching foreign films. So yeah, that tends to be sort of most lunchtimes. I'll have like 20 minutes and break up a long film into little sections. So a lot of it right now isn't like new study because of the MA stuff. It's like, it's my fun time, it's my downtime, it's my leisure time that is where I'm bringing in my languages. But yeah, like, hopefully kind of 6 months when I finish the whole thing and the dissertation is all done, then yeah, I'll be able to use that time that's already there and carved out to have more language again. But I do, I go through kind of phases over the summer, for example. I've got some time planned out for like one lesson a week, again for Russian, just to help me kind of, again, to have that separation from the master's stuff. So yeah, normally, like I say normally, it's been 2 years already, but normally for me it's morning is when I get the most kind of productive stuff done, I guess.
Same here.
Yeah, and then everything else is sort of sprinkled throughout the day. But that's why I love, like, the access that we have nowadays to so many different ways to learn. There's just so much there that we can kind of sprinkle throughout the day, which is really cool.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it can be quite overwhelming to have all of that, but I think overall it's definitely a good thing to have all these options. But yeah, I really envy people like you who can study kind of, you almost, you've made it into like your hobbies, your downtime, right? Your fun time. It sounds like. I find for me it works so much better when I have this scheduled time every day where I sit down and I mean, I still have fun. I watch YouTube videos or whatever like that, but I would never kind of, finish my work, relax on the sofa, and then watch some, Japanese movies. It just doesn't feel right to me, but I wish it did. So I don't know. Is that just natural for you that you got to that?
Yeah, I mean, the way you describe it also doesn't feel natural to me. Like, to finish work and then be like, oh, okay, now put it on. It's more like, I would say, lunchtime, and I see it as I'm either going to watch an old episode of The Office that I've seen multiple times, or
So
I'm gonna or I'm gonna watch something in another language and give myself a bit of extra exposure. So I see it that way, that it's it's extra, rather than this is my like prime time for learning. So yeah, it's interesting. It's the perception of almost like what counts, I think. And again, language learning personality, it's going to be so different for everyone as to what feels like, what percentage of like active learning you want versus the kind of passive, more kind of chill stuff, and what feels good. And you've just got to trust that for yourself. So yeah, I wouldn't say, definitely don't like envy the way that I learn languages or anything, because it's all how it works best for you.
Yeah, I guess that's the whole point of what we're talking about, right?
Yeah,
that, we all have different personalities, and it doesn't really make sense for me to envy another personality. It's just we're all different. So yeah. You caught me. You caught me out.
Not my intention.
But yeah, I think what you mentioned was really, really important, how you're still learning and studying in some ways, but it has taken more of a backseat, less of a priority during your masters, which makes sense. Obviously, it's a good thing. So it's interesting to see how your routine has changed a little bit. We're kind of on the topic of routine, and I want to kind of segue slide into the topic of habits a little bit, just for a few minutes. I thought that could be a
Mm.
good topic to, pick your brain on today.
Yeah.
So I've got a few fun questions here. One is a little bit, what's the word? I don't know. Can't think of the word, but feel free to not answer anything too personal, is what I mean. What is a bad habit that you have?
Bad habit that I have. Oh, I feel like, in a job interview, when people will say, "What's your strengths and weakness?" My weakness is I love my job. And
I'm
it's
too
just
good at
like
my work.
it's a reverse thing. I'm trying to like answer the question without it sounding like,
Yeah.
well, that's obviously a good habit. A
I
bad habit.
haven't prepared Lindsay in advance. So this is totally off the cuff, on the spot.
Yeah. I don't know. I think sometimes maybe like it is easy, and I do fall into that trap of becoming too reliant maybe on apps, where I think, yeah, this totally counts, and then don't practice and produce the language enough. And I'm always telling people in my work, like, produce as much as possible, write and speak and all of these things. But yeah, like times like now when there's essays to be written, it's the only way that I can really fit in new learning. So I don't feel too bad about it, but I wish that I were able to maintain a production habit more so than just an app habit.
That's a really good one. Yeah. I do the same, where I might spend 30 minutes on flashcards and then 5 minutes reading a blog post. And I think it would be better reversed, honestly. Reading that blog is probably much, in my opinion, for me, it would be much more beneficial. I'm seeing everything in context and not just on my apps going like, correct, wrong, correct, wrong.
Tap, tap, swipe, tap, tap, swipe.
Yeah. How about something not related to language learning? Do you have like another bad habit that maybe you'd like to get rid of, but it's hard to kick?
Ooh. Good question.
I'll give you mine.
Yeah.
Very common one while you're thinking is, more recently I've developed the habit of biting my nails, which is really, I hate it, but it's always unconscious, right? I'm just like, oh, I'm doing it again. And I can't seem to stop. So that, I guess there's some underlying stress or something, but there's my
Yeah.
one.
Interesting. I don't know. Like in terms of like the typical answers for bad habits, I'm kind of boring in that respect. I don't smoke, I don't drink alcohol. So there's none of those obvious, oh yeah, it's that. I don't know what would be considered, again,
I
like
guess
a
bad
bad.
is a judgment, isn't it? It depends on what you
Yeah.
think is bad.
And I feel that like if there was something that I felt was like a bad habit, I'm quite headstrong on that front, in that I'd be like, yeah, I don't like this, I'm going to change it, because I don't like feeling kind of down on myself, so if I'm doing something that's really like not making me feel good, and I'm judging myself as a bad habit, then I think generally I am probably quite quick to knock it on the head. Yeah. Sorry, that's a really boring answer.
No, that's a really good thing if you can do that. Maybe
Yeah.
people like your friends and family might have something else to say, but I
Yeah,
can't talk to them.
maybe.
But yeah, how about then moving towards other people? What is I'll try to use a good word for the listeners now, deplorable habit, a bad habit that you see other people doing that maybe gets on your nerves a little bit?
Oh, yeah. Okay. I have a really, vaping,
Interesting.
especially places where you can't smoke, right? So I've seen this a lot recently on trains.
Mhm.
And on public transport. It happened on a tram in Nottingham, to the point that the driver stopped the tram and said, "Stop vaping, I can see you, get off the tram."
Wow.
And the kid, because it was a child, was like, "No, I don't know what you're talking about." Yeah, I just find it really quite obnoxious when people do it in places where they think that they can get away with it. I've
Mhm.
even seen it on a plane, in fact,
Really?
once.
Oh no.
And yeah, I find it really annoying. That is deplorable. Yes.
Yeah, so vaping, e-cigarettes, another word. people seem to think it has different rules, and
Yeah, we're in this grey area of
yeah,
where it's
and
not always clear.
mhm.
So I can see why people try and get away with it.
I think plain
But
is way too far. It's just like a lack of respect for everyone around you who has to breathe in your exhaled
yeah,
fumes.
I don't care if it smells like cherry.
But do you prefer it to cigarette smoke? Because surely you
I
must,
think
yeah.
so. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I don't like either, but
Mm.
yeah, that's a good one. It's a good one. The one that I had in mind was people spitting in public. I know, I think it
Also a
can
good
be
one.
cultural.
Yeah,
Some cultures I've seen it's more common, but in the UK it tends to be like teenagers, right? And sometimes
yeah.
I'm walking behind them, they spit, and I have to like jump to avoid it.
Divert. Yeah.
It really bothers me. But yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, focusing again on like a positive side, what is a good habit that you have perhaps recently implemented? A good habit you've put into place? Any topic you like, any area of life.
Exercising in the morning.
Oh, nice.
So I used to always plan to exercise when I finished work. And some days it would be great. And I'd finish and I'd go out and I'd, do a run or a bike ride, whatever I wanted to do, and then come back and have dinner. And other days I'd finish work and it might be a little bit warm, or it might be raining, or I might be tired. And I just found that was happening more than I was going out and exercising, right? So even though I had this time allocated, it wasn't really working. So I thought, okay, let's shake it up. Let's do it, flip it on its head, and I'll go out in the morning. And it's much better. And it's so nice. It's so quiet. I go out and I ride my bike or I go for a run. And it's a really nice way to start the day, this quiet, cool air. Especially at the minute in the summer, to have that is a blessing. So yeah, that feels like a good habit that I want to keep.
And I guess in the winter, probably at the right time, you can get up,
I'm
cycle.
waiting.
You've got the
I
beautiful
haven't done it in the
sunset, I mean
winter.
sunrise. But, yeah.
I'm curious to see if it lasts beyond the summer. I'm hopeful. I've started at the right time of year, I hope.
Yeah, definitely. Keep it going. Keep it going. But that's nice though. I guess you have, after doing it, you've got that feeling of accomplishment that kind of gets you
Exactly.
through the rest of the day. Like even if you do nothing else,
Yeah.
at least you've done that in the morning. So that's
Yeah.
something I should maybe do as well. Nice. Yeah, I didn't think of one for myself. I don't want to make it seem just like a on the spot interview, but I didn't really prepare one for me. Good habit implemented. Yeah. Well, here's one that I'm trying to implement. I'm trying
Yeah.
quite similar to you. I'm trying to first thing in the morning just get some sunlight. It's not always guaranteed in England, but wake up, wash my face, go for a quick walk, sit in the garden. I just think having that few minutes
That's
of
really
sunlight is
good.
important, but it's
Yeah.
not. I'm not doing it every day, but I would like to.
Yeah, I think that's it. It is that getting outside time that I was liking. And I kind of started, I think with habits, one of the things that I've learned over the years is that starting kind of almost fractions, right? So when I wanted to start exercising in the morning, rather than start exercising in the morning, I started by getting dressed, going for a walk, and listening to whatever I wanted. And then I started getting dressed, going for a walk, and listening to a podcast or something a bit more kind of productive, shall we say. And then I'm like, okay, now I'm up. I've got into the routine of getting up and going out. Now I'm going to try going for a run, like say once a week, then twice a week, and building habits up fractionally like that has always proved really successful for me, rather than diving in, head first, all in one go. I often find that never quite lasts as long.
Yeah, that's something I'm always saying to the listeners as well when it comes to building a language learning habit, is kind of easing into it gradually. Start with 5 minutes a day, and if you like, you can make it longer. It's always going to be more successful, isn't it, than jumping in at the deep end and giving
Exactly.
up probably shortly after.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
That's
I love that. I
exactly
love
it.
that. Well, one more quick one here is what is a habit you would like to develop? So, maybe after your master's when you have more time, is there anything that you think you would like to start doing, you'd like to implement, but you
Yeah.
haven't yet for some reason?
Yeah, so much. There's a lot of things that I'd like to kind of learn how to do, like crafts and different sports and things like that, and languages, obviously. I think I'd like to, when, especially when the master's is done, have at least one language learning lesson a week, kind of on a regular basis. There's been times when it's worked for a bit in the past, and then maybe, if a package has run out and I've just gone, I'll renew it later. But yeah, really trying to do that a bit more regularly would feel good, I think.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. Yeah, like my dream, I don't think I'll ever get here, but my dream is to have like every weekday have 1 hour of a language lesson, like 5 hours a week, because I just feel like
That's
you'd make
cool.
so much improvement, but I
Yeah.
don't know what kind of lifestyle I would need to have to be able to do
Have the
that.
time. And yeah. And are you thinking that would be one language, different languages?
One or two, yeah. I'm not a
Yeah.
big polyglot. I'd like to stick to one as much as I can, or one or two.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, that's my dream. But
Nice.
I'm doing one at the moment. It's better than nothing.
Yeah, definitely better than nothing.
Yeah. Well, on the private podcast this week, I want to talk to you a little bit about some expressions related to habits just for a few minutes. Would you be happy to get into that now?
Let's do it.
So, Lindsay, it's been really nice to chat with you today. I really enjoyed it. And could you let people know like where they can go if they want to find out more about you again, or what you're working on these days, or the links to find out more about you?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. It's been a lot of fun. Yeah, the best place is my website. So lindsaydoeslanguages.com, which is LINDSAY. And the quiz as well is lindsaydoeslanguages.com/quiz. So yeah, have a little look and see, what comes out as your combination for your language personality.
Yeah, maybe listeners can leave a comment wherever. I don't know if they can do it on your website or my website and just say what they
Drop me an
got. That would be
email.
interesting.
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
yeah. I have to admit, whenever I'm typing your website or your name, I feel like Lindsay has different spellings sometimes.
So many.
So in my head, I'm saying Lindsay,
Yes,
and that's
that's
how
the
I
best
remember.
way. Yeah.
But yeah, well, thank you for joining me again. Really appreciate
Thank
your
you.
time.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
You have been listening to the Level Up English podcast. If you would like to leave a question to be answered on a future episode, then please go to levelupenglish.school/podcast. That's levelupenglish.school/podcast. And I'll answer your question on a future episode. Thanks for listening.